This is a scene-by-scene spoiler discussion and analysis of Spider-Man Brand New Day. We are going to talk about the lurking Jean Grey in the background of Peter's meeting with Bruce Banner, how her little true love's kiss comment is actually the key to her remembering Peter Parker. We're going to talk Punisher, Hulk, mutants, Avengers, everything. So let's get started. Hey everyone, Colton here, and Spider-Man Brand New Day, to me, is by far the best Tom Holland Spider-Man movie, arguably the best live-action Spider-Man movie since Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 2, and it may even be like the best MCU movie of the entire Multiverse Saga. That is until Doomsday comes out. So, this is my full spoiler review, discussion, breakdown, whatever you want to call it, of Spider-Man Brand New Day, and give you my detailed thoughts on this brilliant installment of the franchise. What worked, a few things that maybe didn't work, and I'm gonna tell you why this movie has me so excited for the new Spider-Man Day trilogy, which will continue after Doomsday and Secret Wars, and hopefully keep Destin Daniel Cretton on as the director. With recent reports that Wonder Man Season 2 has been canceled, that could be an indicator that they want Destin doing more Spider-Man, or maybe even Shang-Chi 2 instead of making Disney Plus TV shows. Really good TV shows, don't get me wrong, but Marvel Studios, they're a movie company, and they need to be putting movies first. And thankfully, they seem to finally be realizing once again that movies need to be their focus. So, Spider-Man Brand New Day, right? We open with the Marvel Studios intro. They've done this stylized version, which is all Spider-Man instead of having various other MCU characters. They've actually done this before with that Stan Lee tribute that was in Captain Marvel. And then there was the Black Panther Wakanda Forever tribute to Chadwick Boseman. But you know, those were both tributes to the real-life passing of Stan Lee and Boseman, so this was kind of a first time that I can think of, at least, where they did a full dedicated intro for just the main character of the film. I mean, we've seen them make slight adjustments, right? Like when they added Deadpool to the intro for Deadpool and Wolverine. And another thing, and this probably comes down to the Sony of it all and the deal they have, but in other MCU movies, the Marvel Studios intro usually does not include Spider-Man unless it's a Spider-Man movie. In that case, they do usually include like the shot of him landing and saying, "Hey, everyone," from Civil War. So yeah, I do think that was a first here with Brand New Day. And what was really brilliant about it was how they used this intro to, one, catch us up on Peter's journey thus far, which we've seen done in the Raimi films in their intros. But I also really liked how after we see the events of No Way Home and the Forget Peter Parker spell, the following scenes in the logo show Peter disappearing from previous films. He has been forgotten. So the film opens with Peter reading the letter that we heard him reading at the end of No Way Home, where he plans to try and make MJ and Ned remember him as he promised. But as we know, he of course opts to keep that secret and let them have their lives safe and happy off at college without the burden of being friends with Spider-Man and the dangers that come with that. Peter basically then distracts himself and his immense grief of not only losing his best friend and the love of his life, but also the death of his Aunt May, and he drowns all of that out by going deeper and deeper into being Spider-Man. And again, I loved this movie. I think it was amazing, spectacular even, but I was a little gobsmacked, if that's the right word, by them actually doing a 4-year time skip and us learning that Peter has been alone for 4 years. Ned and MJ have gone on to live their lives for 4 years with no memory of Peter Parker. And those are really formative years. Those 4 years after high school, and them deciding to do this 4-year time skip as opposed to like a 1 or maybe even 2-year skip, that was certainly a bold choice. And it's going to have some pretty serious ramifications, I think, for where we go next with Peter and Ned's friendship, but more specifically with Peter and MJ's relationship. And we'll talk about that a little later. Now, during the time skip montage, we see what Peter has been up to, right? Out there Spider-Manning, facing lots of villains, not just muggers or bank robbers, but like actual supervillains like the Hand, Tombstone, and Matt Gargan's Scorpion. And I will say, I kind of wish they had let Scorpion have a bigger role to play in the film. This movie was already really long. I'm not complaining about the runtime, I loved it, but it was already a really long film, and I can't think of anything that I would have cut from the movie, so I'm not sure where exactly you would add in more Scorpion, but I just think knowing a little bit more about, like, Mac Gargan, who we haven't seen since Homecoming and who had a very small role in that film. Actually, we did see him in, did he pop up in Morbius? No. He did? Oh my God. No. Did he? No. No, he didn't. It was just Michael Keaton's Vulture. Sorry, I've tried to wipe that all from my mind. Do my own, like, forget Morbius spell. Anyway, I do think it would have been cool to get a little bit more Gargan, have like the slightest reminder of why he hates Spider-Man. Maybe show J. Jonah Jameson giving Gargan the scorpion suit, like in the comics. I don't know. I just feel like these are 4 years of just absolutely crucial points in Peter's life and his story overall. And I feel like it was kind of brushed past in this opening montage. It almost makes me wish, and this is a guy who absolutely loves this movie, okay? Love Brand New Day, wouldn't change it, wouldn't have it any other way. I wouldn't try to, go to Doctor Strange and ask him to undo it or anything. No, I'm glad they did what they did. And I get that the movie works really well as a sequel to No Way Home, but I still kind of wish that they had done a movie without Ned, without MJ, and shown Peter Parker being Spider-Man, meeting Black Cat, having his college days minus the college. There's some really cool stuff that they could have done with his character and showing him go out and kind of explore the world and adulthood for the first time. And then Brand New Day, or this film, I don't know if you would have called it Brand New Day still, but then this film, when Ned and MJ are back in town and Peter realizes that he too has forgotten a lot about Peter Parker, just like everyone else, that could be what brings him back. And that kind of happens, right? When you graduate high school, you go off to college or trade school, you move and you try to discover yourself and you learn different things about yourself, meet different people. And then, at least I think for me and many others, there's still, when you get a little older, sometimes you come back home and you get more in touch with who you were, and you kind of merge those two selves, the self you were for those first 18 years, and then the self you were those 4 or 5 years after that, and then they kind of merge into the person you're going to be. So I think that's something that they could have done there, but maybe they could do like an animated series on Disney Plus, 30-minute episodes covering those years. I think that would be cool, and it's pretty rare that I call for a Disney Plus show or an animated show to tell crucial pieces of a story. Very rare that I would call for that. I'm usually, do a movie. That's my main thing. But in this case, I think it kind of calls for it because they've obviously decided they're not going to tell that story on the big screen. Maybe they do some flashbacks or something in future installments of this trilogy. But I think that'd be kind of cool if they did maybe 4 seasons of like an 8-episode show, and each 8 episodes is a year. God, that would be. And so, Sony can't tell Marvel they can't do it because Marvel has the rights to do animated under 30-minute Spider-Man shows. That's how they can do the Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man show. I think that'd be a good idea. And guys, Tom Holland, he really carried this movie. I was so impressed with not only his on-screen performance, but his work behind the scenes on the creative direction that this film was going to take. And he actually brought a lot of stuff that he learned from Christopher Nolan on set of The Odyssey over to Spider-Man Brand New Day. And he was a big proponent of not cutting corners and being sure to make this movie like a movie. And you can just feel it when you watch it. And in a lot of ways, Spider-Man was Tom Holland's second superhero movie this year. The Odyssey, in so many ways, is the original superhero story that laid the groundwork for heroes like Spider-Man. And that's why I want to share with you guys the sponsor of today's video, Heroes of History. This is a free strategic city building building and hero collection game where you can grow your own civilization, collect legendary heroes from across history and mythology, and you can battle in real time. You can play on mobile or browser with no download needed. Now, on July 1st, the Great Odyssey event began, and it brought the hero Odysseus to Heroes of History, and you can help him take down Skyla in the brand new Skyla event dungeon, a boss fight with escalating mechanics and some of the hardest in-game content available. And if you log in for 7 days during the event, you can unlock the limited 5-star hero Odysseus, because once the event ends, he is gone forever. And what's fun about this game is it kind of lets you put your own spin on history and tell the story your way. Very similar to what I was just discussing earlier with how we're still telling these same stories all these years later, just in different forms. And now you can do that and play with different heroes from throughout history to tell that same classic story. So if you want to play Heroes of History, be sure to download the game, and using my promo code Colton gives you bonuses which will give you a head start. Or you can scan the QR code on screen and let me know in the comments what you thought of the game. There's great stuff in the montage. We see glimpses of Peter being flirted with and him being awkward. We see him move into an absolute shithole that he actually spruces up quite nicely and is probably still at least like $2,500 a month in New York City. And even if it's not quite that much, I'm not sure how he's paying for it at all. They never establish him having a job, I don't think. Obviously, Spider-Man is his job, but a job that he gets paid to do. But someone on Twitter actually replied to a post of mine pointing out that Peter probably does like DoorDash and like food delivery type stuff as Spider-Man, and that's probably true, just to earn enough for him to get by. And you know, we've seen Spider-Man deliver pizza before, and instead of ordering pizza like we saw in this montage, I think it would have been cool to do another tribute to Raimi's Spider-Man 2, of which there are many in this movie. I also saw some commenting that, you know, Peter, he is a genius, so he could very easily do like tutoring, which would be ironic if he himself dropped out of school. He could do tech work. Hell, he could do like just simple like screen repairs, fix people's computers, and that'd be like a really easy thing for him and just be like a little side gig he could do from his apartment. Getting back to the montage, I also think it would have been cool to have shown just even a snippet of Peter or Spider-Man's reaction to Kingpin's reign as the mayor, the attack by Sentry on New York. But no, they didn't touch on any of that. That's fine, whatever. Now, speaking of Kingpin, which of course also then makes you think of Daredevil, but who else? The Punisher, who has a great relationship with Spider-Man in this movie. It's brilliant. It's my favorite Spider-Man and insert MCU character here, a supporting MCU character role for a Tom Holland Spider-Man movie. It's my favorite duo that they've done yet. I loved the foreshadowing of the ending when Peter tells Frank, Frank, you just hit me with a van. You can't shoot yourself out of every situation, when he takes the gun. And he says how innocent people get hurt. And then, of course, Frank tries to, you know, come the end of the film, shoot Jean to save the city. Peter steps in the way and gets lethally wounded. That was all foreshadowed right there in that first scene between Peter and Frank. Now, speaking of MCU characters being in the movie, right? We also got Yelena Belova, the leader of the new Avengers. I love Florence Pugh. I love her as Yelena. She is quickly becoming one of my favorite MCU characters. And she is now known, as revealed in this movie, she is going by Black Widow. I love that she has taken her sister's mantle. Very cool. I will say, and I know this might come off nitpicky or bitchy or whatever, wasn't crazy about the whole spa thing. Not because I'm being like a prude or anything. I could give a shit about that. In fact, I was hoping we'd see Spider-Man have like this exact type of interaction with like a Felicia Hardy Black Cat or something. I'm all for that. But Yelena is about to be a lead in Avengers Doomsday. I think seeing Spider-Man swing over to Avengers Tower and showing Yelena like stressing over a more global scale mission and like just being in the thick of it to where like she can't even focus on this DODC Mindhopper thing because there are so many other just huge things happening in the world that she is trying to manage as the leader of this new Avengers team. And just having Avengers Tower be the place where her and Spider-Man have their small potatoes versus big potatoes conversation, I think that would have been better. I get the whole spa thing as a gag, I do, but it felt a little like a gag for gag's sake. And I personally would have preferred to see Spider-Man like actually go to Avengers Tower, maybe even ask like, hey, well, where's Captain America, by the way? Of course, talking about Sam Wilson's Captain America. And Yelena could be like, that's complicated, don't ask. And I'm not calling for the scene to have been like any longer between these two characters, but just have like almost this exact same scene, but have it unfold at Avengers Tower, or even like maybe in the lobby of Avengers Tower where there's like a, I don't know, a massage kiosk or like one of those automatic massage chairs that you can swipe and it'll give you a massage for 15 minutes, and have Yelena and Peter both sitting in those and having their conversation. Even that, or at a coffee shop or something. But at Avengers Tower, I think that would have been cool. Like have him swing up to the top of Avengers Tower and he's like wanting to meet with her. And then he like gets an alert or something saying, meet me downstairs. And he has to go down to the lobby. And because that's what they're kind of wanting to indicate there, right? That Spider-Man is not quite on the big potatoes Avengers thing. And that would have showcase that right there, like meet me down in the lobby. You still could have got that same like funny, you know, laid back Yelena kind of thing. I think that would have been cool. But again, that's just me nitpicking. I loved her character. I loved how this movie established that big potato versus small potatoes thing with Spider-Man and the Avengers. Really well done. I liked hearing Yelena mention that she sees sadness in Spider-Man, because that immediately made me think about how in tune Yelena is with that kind of thing. I mean, that's what Thunderbolts was all about. So I liked seeing these two together on screen, and I hope to see more of that moving forward. I think they would have some really great chemistry. And they have to mention in passing at some point, whenever they share a scene together again in whatever movie, that they bathe together, and someone be like, I'm sorry, what? You did what? All right, moving on. We, of course, have the hand ninjas that were, of course, seen in Daredevil and the Defenders, but never like this, man. They handled the hand really well. They were super cool. They didn't go deep into the hand lore or anything, but they did show them during combat with Spider-Man, and that was really good. And I do want to pat myself on the back a little bit. I totally called weeks ago that the hand would be working for DODC. So moving on, MJ and Ned, they have graduated. They are back in the city. Peter is still clearly obsessed with them, it would appear. And that's just kind of sad to know that even after 4 years, he is still like very much so attached to these two old relationships that he hasn't interacted with beyond watching Ned's social media in 4 years. And I get it. I'm not judging Peter. I'm just saying it makes me feel so bad for Peter that this much time has passed. And so anyway, he sees Ned. He ends up following him to his apartment where a party is being had. Find out that Ned is obsessed with finding out who Spider-Man is because he knows Spider-Man has saved him multiple times. I love that Ned leads are Flash Thompson and Mr. Harrington. Hilarious. We briefly meet MJ's boyfriend, but then like, that's it. It's the guy that plays Ezra in the Ahsoka series. I thought we'd see more of him in the movie. I'm not saying he need to have like this huge role, but I did think we'd see a little bit more of him, and like, him maybe freaking out over MJ being missing, or like showing up at the apartment when Spider-Man is there hanging out with Ned and MJ, and the boyfriend being like, so glad MJ is okay. And then he's like, oh, wow, Spider-Man's here. And then Peter would have to be put in a position where he has to be friendly with this guy. And, he's probably thanking Spider-Man for saving her and all of that. And I feel like that was just kind of a missed opportunity to make Spider-Man, Peter, have to have an interaction with the boyfriend. And I feel like they were like setting this character up to be revealed as like maybe a Harry Osborn or an Eddie Brock or whoever, somebody that might become a Goblin or a Venom down the line, and someone who has like that personal beef, not only with Spider-Man, but with Peter Parker, whenever MJ inevitably remembers who he is and decides, well, that's the love of my life. That's who I need to be with. I love the way that they used Aunt May in this movie, having her be a memory, and we get to see Peter's old room and how it looked and how he looked in Spider-Man Homecoming. This scene where this memory is, referencing, it has to be like slightly post Spider-Man Homecoming, I would think. Yeah, because she already knows he's Spider-Man. So it's post Homecoming, but it's before Infinity War. Now, there were lots of tributes to Raimi and Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man 2 in this movie. The look, the feel, the tone. Also, just a straight up mention of Peter 2 when Peter 1 is testing out his organic webbings on a rooftop. really reminiscent of that scene from the first Spider-Man movie where Tobey's doing the same thing. The Hulk was also, of course, featured in the film. And when I say the Hulk, I do mean the Hulk. We finally, for the first time since Infinity War, got the Hulk. For a long time, we have only had Professor Hulk, and many, when this movie was being advertised, assumed that the inhibitor bracelet was what was like keeping the Hulk at bay. But no. The inhibitor bracelet, all it does is keep Professor Hulk, which has the mind of Bruce Banner, it keeps Bruce in his puny Banner form instead of his physical Hulk form. So when Bruce says in this movie that what Peter is proposing is dangerous about picking what's good and bad from nature, and how do you decide, what's good and bad? And he even says, like, me, picking the good aspects of the Hulk. That is exactly what Bruce has done with Professor Hulk. He put the brain and the brawn together, and he banished the mind of the true Hulk to that same car trunk that Bruce was locked in between Avengers Age of Ultron and Thor Ragnarok. So I was glad that Brand New Day stuck with what had been established in canon, in Endgame, as well as in She-Hulk, with the establishment of what that inhibitor does. I'm glad they didn't change it to where, if the inhibitor comes off, he goes full Rage Hulk. No, he just goes into Professor Hulk. And what they did was they had Jean just mind control Bruce to remove that inhibitor so that he would be in that Professor Hulk form, and she could use him and his strength to break into the DODC building. And at that point, she had yet to unleash the monstrous Hulk. I don't think she even had any intention of doing that. But her tampering with Bruce's mind is what ultimately broke whatever barrier that he had been able to establish, and that did then unleash the Hulk. My only note, something that I wish they had shown in the movie, and maybe they did and I just missed it, but I wish they had shown Jean, who we know has been mind-hopping discreetly and following Peter. So she was likely present when Peter visited Bruce at the university. And that is likely when she got the idea to take over and use the Hulk. So I think it would have been cool if we got a little hint that Jean was present during that scene where Peter goes to visit Bruce at the university, and then we can be like, oh shit, she's coming for the Hulk. Now, sticking on Hulk and Jean, I also liked the mutant setup, mutant collars and inhibitors and stuff. That was all very cool. In Spider-Man and Hulk's fight, when Hulk's about to crush Peter's skull, and Peter says, Bruce, it's me, Peter, I'm your friend. That had me feeling a little like I might choke up a little bit. That is what stops Hulk and calms him down. And that has me wondering if Hulk was not affected by the Forget Peter Parker spell and knew, he remembered Peter Parker and remembered he was Spider-Man, like in the comics, after the One More Day comic, when Mephisto erases, I can't remember. It's like Peter goes to he goes to Reed. I think he even goes to Doom and Tony for help. And eventually he makes a deal with Mephisto where they undo the fact that he was ever married to MJ, and it's to save Aunt May. And what that also does is it makes the world forget that he revealed his secret identity in Civil War. But Hulk wasn't affected by it. So while Bruce forgot, Hulk didn't. So I think maybe they're doing that here as well. And with Hulk having come back to the surface and he is now warring with Bruce over control of the wheel, I think Bruce was then able to also remember who Peter Parker is when Peter said, I am Peter, I'm your friend. So we kind of saw that moment where, because the Hulk had come back out, Bruce was able to access that memory, and that is what was able to tame the Hulk, right? So I think that's really cool, and it kind of also shows that the Hulk's like, oh, yeah, you are my friend. Okay, so going back to Jean, right? When she pulled that shit on the rooftop with MJ, acting like she remembered Peter, that was cruel, man. I mean, fucking cruel. And I think it may have been a foreshadowing moment of how MJ will ultimately come to remember Peter. Jean in that scene, when she's in MJ's body, she mocks Peter for thinking that true love's kiss was actually going to be able to break the spell. But come the end of the movie, when Peter and Ned do their handshake and Ned remembers it through muscle memory, that breaks through and makes Ned remember. And that was also what they did right before the spell was cast. The last time they saw each other, Peter and Ned did the handshake in No Way Home. And what did Peter and MJ do right before the spell was cast at the end of No Way Home? They kissed. So I think if these two were to kiss, with MJ actually being at the wheel of her own mind, not Jean, I think that might actually break the spell, the same way that the handshake did for Ned. All right, staying on MJ, loved her in this movie. Zendaya gave a great performance. I loved her interactions with Spider-Man, of course, but also her back and forth with Frank. In fact, I think the time spent at Frank's boathouse, that was some of the best stuff in the movie. I love John Bernthal. I love his Punisher. I watched that show like day one, and it's so cool seeing him in the MCU proper now on the big screen and sharing scenes with Spider-Man and the Hulk. My God. The scene where Spider-Man is like dragging Frank with his web across the floor and Frank is like shooting at the Hulk as he is being drugged, that was just awesome. Frank is the perfect look in the mirror of what Peter doesn't want to become. I love the line where Frank puts in perspective that Peter is lucky that, you know, some of the people that he still loves are still alive and that he needs to be with them. I loved Sadie Sink's portrayal of Jean Grey. She brought it, man, and she's going to be a great addition to the MCU. Leading the mutant saga, cannot wait. I loved Peter's sacrifice at the end of the movie and how it made her have a change of heart and realize that great loss doesn't mean you have to burn the world down. You can instead try to make sure that that same loss and that same feeling, that horrible feeling, doesn't happen to anyone else. And then, of course, you know, after Peter does that, he's in critical condition. And I tell you what, I didn't think the movie was going to end with us seeing Peter Parker walk out of that hospital. In fact, I thought they were going to have him being in the hospital be the reason that he's not in Avengers Doomsday. Now, while in the hospital, we see that Frank is there by his bedside, hasn't left. We even caught him napping. I loved before that where they recreated him carrying Spider-Man's body into the hospital and he's like screaming for help, recreating that panel from the comics. I really like the scene where Frank, a Marine, told Peter how brave he was, and I also loved him putting on the Spider-Man mask and gloves and grunting in the Spider-Man mask so Peter could leave. It was all just so good, and I'm really hopeful that this will mean that Frank will remain a supporting character throughout this Day trilogy or whatever they end up calling it. I want Bernthal in Secret Wars, and I want him in the next Spider-Man movie and the one after that. He would be a great supporting hero to have there alongside Peter and their ground level vigilanteing, right? I loved it. This movie, it was great. If I had to rank it amongst all the Spider-Man movies, I'd say for me personally, it doesn't beat out Spider-Man 2. It doesn't beat out Spider-Man 1. It probably doesn't beat out Into the Spider-Verse, but I'd say it's very safely at number 4. Granted, I've only seen it once. It's still new, it's still fresh, but right now that's where I have it. And hell, I would also say this might be the best movie of the Multiverse Saga, as I said off the top. The only one that I'd consider putting above it is Thunderbolts, but as of right now, I don't think so. I think Brand New Day was better than Thunderbolts. But guys, those are just my thoughts and little details and stuff I noticed about Spider-Man Brand New Day. Let me know your thoughts on the film, any cool things that you noticed that maybe you haven't heard mentioned in this video or maybe in other breakdowns and stuff on YouTube. Just have fun, talk about the movie. That's what I wanted this video to be, just kind of a rambling discussion of the film itself. It was so much fun, and yeah. Stay tuned for more Spider-Man videos, lots of Avengers Doomsday videos. If you're new here, welcome. I'm Colton Ogburn. You might know me from Screen Crush. You've probably seen me there. A lot of people make a joke about me being in a TV or something. I don't get it. I don't know what that's about. Anyway, if you're new here, please do feel free to subscribe. Hit the bell so you get notified every time I upload a new video. I will see you guys next time. I've been Colton Ogburn. Bye!